The Tao Te Ching outlines a strict mechanical system for generating and maintaining reality. It isolates exactly how power functions when stripped of all coercion. We are looking at ancient Chinese manuscript slips, the physical medium that transmitted this exact operational blueprint. Chapter 51 establishes the baseline physics of this system. The Tao acts as the absolute origin point, producing all things. But origin alone cannot sustain a system. It requires a secondary mechanism, De. This is the outflowing operational virtue that nourishes whatever the origin produces. The text defines the continuous interaction between this source and its field as the mysterious operation. This diagram models a dual-node generative network. As forms emerge within this field, they absorb energy according to their own nature, without requiring any restrictive tethers or visible binding links to the central source. The system drives these forms to maturity, yet completely relinquishes control over them. It produces life without claiming possession, and matures forms without micromanagement. Many models of power equate systemic efficacy with strict structural control, rigid binding, and the capacity to coerce behavior. This creates a mechanical problem. If a governing source abandons all ownership and control, how does its system survive entropy? Systemic survival in this physics relies entirely on an entity's architectural alignment with a generative source. Top-down coercion introduces friction, making control a structural inefficiency rather than a moral choice. Chapter 52 scales this macro-ontology down to individual human cognition. The operational requirement is to identify with the origin, the mother, rather than getting trapped reacting to the phenomenal manifestations, the children. To maintain this connection, the text outlines a strict physical imperative. You must keep the mouth closed and shut the portals of the senses. This models human cognition as a geometric closed vessel. By sealing these boundaries against sensory input, internal pressure is preserved, ensuring system integrity. If a person opens these portals to engage in worldly affairs, the pressure violently leaks out. The system faces immediate peril. The text argues that perceiving what is small, rather than projecting outward, constitutes clear-sightedness. Directing sensory orientation outward and relying on physical exertion guarantees structural failure. Cognitive resilience requires internal sealing and continuous subtraction. External accumulation is an epistemological trap that actively depletes the energy required to process it. Chapter 55 provides a biological model of De operating at maximum potential. The infant. The infant possesses weak bones and soft sinews, yet its grasp is firm. This lack of rigidity indicates the perfection of its physical essence. An infant can cry all day without its throat becoming hoarse, indicating a sustained harmonic endurance. The physical rule is explicit. Softness is inextricably linked to high energy capacity and structural harmony. Chapter 53 contrasts this biological ideal with a model of systemic failure, the robber prince. This split screen compares the two models. Left is the fluid, vibrating core of the infant state. Right is the robber, a rigidly armored shell, optimized for overt strength. But this outward display masks internal rot. The armored shell collapses, entirely empty. The drive to project overt external strength actively cannibalizes the internal infrastructure required to sustain it. The text defines the terminal state of this entropy. Reaching peak rigidity, or becoming strong, is the immediate, unavoidable precursor to becoming old and dying. Hyper-optimization and resource hoarding are structurally self-defeating. Enduring strength requires maintaining the soft, unoptimized potential of the infant. Chapter 54 shifts the implications of this physics from biology to macropolitics. Statecraft is treated as fractal governance, a direct scaling up of individual physics. This diagram shows governance beginning at the atomic level, rooted entirely within the self. Because the internal logic of this node is stable, it organically replicates outward, establishing order within the immediate family unit. This exact operational logic continues to multiply. It expands to the neighborhood, scales up to the state, and eventually encompasses the entire kingdom. The text justifies this through empirical observation. You understand the family by observing the family, and the kingdom by observing the kingdom across these exact scales. Taoist statecraft rejects top-down legislative policy. It relies entirely on the bottom-up replication of non-coercive virtue. You cannot force a macrostate into stability. A kingdom is only as stable as the microscopic harmonic state of its individual nodes. Chapter 56 details the epistemological limit reached when a practitioner perfectly executes this system. It presents a central paradox of mastery. He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know. Linguistic expression requires categorization and boundary drawing. Speaking acts as a form of sensory leaking, a direct attempt at coercive control over an inherently fluid reality. The alternative is a final operational process called the mysterious agreement. This animation displays a highly complex, rapidly spiking waveform. The practitioner must actively blunt their sharp points and unravel their own complications. Next, they deliberately dim their output until they completely merge with the ambient obscurity of others. True mastery demands that you deliberately dismantle your own tools of intellectual and social dominance. By erasing their distinct outline, the practitioner steps entirely outside human binaries, achieving a state of structural invulnerability. They can no longer be treated familiarly or distantly. They bypass all calculations of profit or injury and sit outside the social metrics of nobility or meanness. This creates the final paradox of the sage's social standing. The sage becomes the noblest man under heaven precisely by rendering himself structurally incapable of participating in the hierarchy of nobility. The Tao Te Ching demands constant, rigorous subtraction. It suggests that ultimate systemic resilience and influence require the complete, radical surrender of coercion.